Hi there, I'm Bass Fox. Welcome to today's video. A friend of the channel, Wayne Stinnett, has asked me if I could do a tutorial on using the anagram to achieve Tim Commerford's bass tone. If you don't know, Tim Commerford is the bass player for Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave, Prophets of Rage, and his latest band, Whack Rat, right? And he's had a long career. He's played in many bands. Each band has had many phases, many songs, many records. He's gone through many basses. So there isn't one Tim Commerford sound, right? And I'm a big fan of a lot of his work. I'm unfamiliar with some of it, which I've actually done a little research on and been checking out to just inform myself in order to be able to make this video. The conclusion I come to is there's not one Tim Commerford sound, but there are certain things that I guess one could generalize about his style, his vision, his approach to playing the bass. And mostly it's about the fingers and the instrument. While he has gone through phases where he played the jazz bass, where he played a Lackland bass, he's famous for that Stingray sound, right, from Rage Against the Machine. And I happen to have a 2000 Y2K Stingray right here, American made. This is one of my prized possessions, one of my favorite basses. And he was doing this in the early 90s, so this is not that much later, this bass. Nowadays, he's also playing the Stingrays again. He's got his own signature Stingray that just came out on NAMM a couple of days ago. I saw a gear rundown of his on YouTube, and he's playing lots of Stingrays, even the double humbucker one and everything. So there isn't a single Tim Commerford sound, but if I were to try to narrow it down, I would definitely use a Stingray, and I would also try to approach the instrument with his very aggressive finger style playing. So he's not using a pick most of the time. I don't think I've ever seen him use a pick. He might have. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. My personal approach isn't too different from his when I'm playing rock. So it's really aggressive fingerstyle plucking, where you're almost using your fingers as drumsticks. You know, they're almost like Tony Levin's funk fingers without the funk fingers. So you keep the fingers fairly straight. You're not trying to hook or anything like that. And you're striking the strings rather than just plucking, right? So I made a preset here on the anagram, which I will share with you. Not only the preset, it's going to be available probably by the time you're watching this video, it'll already be in the cloud. But I'm also going to show you how I did it so you understand the principles of sound design behind what I did here. In his gear run through, it was very interesting because I realized that he plays through two rigs, one for the distorted sound and one for the clean sound. And that's interesting. It's different than having one rig and then stepping on some kind of distortion for the distortion, right? He actually engages an entire different head and speakers for that. So I tried to emulate that on this preset over here. So let me just do a quick run through what it is. So of course a noise suppressor, as usually I do. Now once I got the sound, I started playing around with Darkglass's new volume pedal and some delays, because I like the sound so much that I started playing around with it. Right, but we're gonna just leave that volume all the way up, and we're gonna turn off the delays. I've bound the foot switches here in stomp mode so that I can turn off the delay, so we get. Now I'm also using separate outputs for the distorted sound and for the clean sound. So you might be hearing them in stereo right now. Right, so at the intro you saw me playing a couple of his hits from the old Rage Against the Machine days, like right, and the as you see, I'm really banging on those strings. It's almost like slapping, right? You get almost like a slap sound, but you're using the middle and index fingers. But also there's something going on here with the amps. Tim uses SVTs, uses vintage tube SVT heads through SVT cabinets. I don't particularly love the Peggy bass, which is the SVT in the Anagram. I actually found myself using the Isobricks, and the Isobrick amps, there is a distorted version with overdrive, which is the black one, and the silver one is the clean one, right? So right here we have a split. So we have the noise gate going into the volume pedal, going into a compressor. Yeah, compressor is important in Tim's sound. He has a lot of sustain, and he can really dig in without, peaking by using a compressor. And then it gets split, the signal gets split. Part of it, half of it, goes into the clean Isobrick here, which is actually based on a Mesa Boogie kind of a sound, which is also tube amp. And then it goes into an 8x10 cabinet, right? It's got that delay there that you engage when you press this switch. And then I have the output block here routing this signal to one of the outputs, right? And then we have a limiter at the end for when we use headphones, for example. It's a nice clean sound, a nice consistent volume, right? And then on the bottom here, the split takes this into the black Isobrick, which is the Guinea, the distorted, the overdriven Mesa Boogie clone or model, right? That goes through another 8x10 speaker, Ampeg inspired here. And then there's also a different delay there, because I like to play around with stereo ping pong type delays. So this one is actually the analog delay. We have the mod delay on the clean sound, right? So, but this has nothing to do with Tim. This is just me fiddling. The volume pedal and the delays, that's just me. But Tim himself, honestly, I think the clean sound is not completely clean. It's pretty gritty already. But it's mostly clean. It's the clean sound, even if it's got that little bit of overdrive that makes it stand out in the mix. It gives it some overtones, and it's nice, right? But then you get the really driven sound out of the other amp over here, and this is routed to the other output of the Anagram, right? So I have it like in stereo, where one side is clean, the other side is distorted. This is useful if you're working with front of house engineer, because you can give him these separate feeds and he can treat them differently on his mixer, right, and have that control. Of course, you can also have them mixed inside the Anagram and just send one output and just deal with that yourself. But I thought it would be he would probably, if he were to do a fly rig, he doesn't have to, right? He's a big deal, Tim. He just has roadies and budget to travel with his gigantic amplifiers and speaker cabinets that weigh a ton and all that. But if I would imagine that if he were to use something like an Anagram for a live gig, that he would want to give the sound engineer a separate feed for the distorted sound, because that's how they do it live. That's how they do it in the real world, right? He has one speaker cabinet for the clean sound and one for the dirty sound. So you've heard it already. Let's go ahead and make it from scratch. Right? I like to do this so we can really, really internalize what's going on. So we're going to move to a new preset here. And as usual, I always start with a noise gate just because. And that's in dynamics. Why is the noise gate dynamics? Noise gate is actually like the inverse of a compressor. What it does is it lowers the volume when you're not playing, right? So you set the threshold so that when you start playing, it opens the gate, lets your sound through. When you stop playing, it only senses the hum, the buzz, the hiss, whatever kind of noise is being generated. It'll be below the volume threshold of you actually playing, and then the gate closes, right? So it's a dynamics processor, just like a compressor is. It's just acting in a different way, right? It's detecting dynamics and affecting volume, and dynamics is volume, amplitude, right? So now we go ahead and pull up. I'm going to make this the simple one, right? The simple Tim patch. And that's just going to be the compressor, first and foremost. And I'm enjoying the Lumino. I think the Lumino does a great job. So we're just going to, right, already, right there. I'm going to leave it as it comes default. We'll fiddle with it if we need to later. And then we get an amp and a cab, right? But first, since we're going to split it between clean and dirty, we're going to use a utility here called the split, right? And then now we're going to put the clean sound on top. So we'll go to amps and cabs over here. We're going to choose the clean ISO brick. And then we're going to add a speaker cabinet, which is going to be that SVT 8x10 looking thing, which I think you could try the orange. You could try any kind that you want. You know, don't because remember, this is not the real amp cabinet. It's an emulation. So, you know, sometimes you get a better result not trying to use the emulation that's meant to represent the thing you're trying to emulate. So, and I'm not even going to fiddle with the miking or anything. I think it sounds good like this. So that's one, right? Now we're going to do the distorted one at the bottom here. So that's the ISO brick again, but the black one. So amps and cabs, the black ISO brick. We want to give it some gain and overdrive, right? We want the cabinet as well. There we go. Same cabinet, just like he does live. He uses two Ampeg 8x10 cabs, the classic Henry the 8x8, right? I think that's what they used to call it. And I can't really see the logo there, but it kind of looks like Ampeg-y, right? So that's what we're going to use. Now, before I split it, we're going to play around with it, blend it, right? So we have to blend it back in, merge it back in. So now here on this merge block, we have a balance, right? We can blend how much we want of each. So this is the clean sound and the dirty sound, right? And in fact, we can use the foot switch to blend that in, right? So if I step on my foot switch here, I can click on the binding and I can click on the blend and choose the blend here. So now we have just the clean sound. We can add in that distorted sound. Detuned. I tuned the E string down to a low D. I should probably get a hip shot D extender for this bass. I have one for my Yamaha bass and it's really nice. Oh, by the way, how do I have my onboard preamp set up on the Stingray here, right? I have bass boosted all the way, the mid's in the mid, because I actually think he used the one that only had a bass and treble boost and cut, right? And the treble's in the middle as well. So I'm just boosting the bass. I don't really think, you know, if you listen to Tim's sound on Audioslave, for example, it's very deep, dark sound. He doesn't really go for that twangy, bright. The brightness he gets is normally coming out of the distortion, not so much out of boosting the highs out of the bass, right? So that's how I have it. I have it everything flat, volume all the way up, except for the bass. The bass is boosted. Right? So now, let's have a look at that the blend is all the way distorted, right? We actually want a blend of both. So, and that's hard to achieve here with the pedal. So maybe it wasn't such a great idea to bind the foot switch. We're gonna just lay off the foot switch there, and the way we can engage the merge, we can do it differently. We can actually go to bindings here. We're gonna hit that binding there, and then we're gonna choose on off for that merge, right? Okay, now we can go back to the chain, and there it is. So now when I step on this, we're getting just a clean sound. Maybe we want a little bit more gain on our clean sound. We don't want it completely clean, remember. Right, and really attack those strings. Nice. As we step on this switch here, we engage the other rig, the distorted rig. And I think this is a good measure of it. You don't need a lot of it because the clean one's already pretty punchy and a little bit gritty. So maybe we went just a little bit more on this one. A little bit of level. There you go. I don't seem to be. This, and we have the clean sound. Right, the clean sound. Killing in the name, for example, it starts distorted, right? So it's like. And when the singing starts. Engage distortion when you need it. And turn it off when you don't. Nice. I like it. I like the sound a lot. And let's name it, right? We're gonna call this Bass Fox Commerford. Right? I already have that Rage 1 that I showed you in the beginning. So how do we split it now? Right? If you want to do that thing where you're splitting it. So now instead of the merge, we swap that for a output here, and we choose XLR 1 and 1/4 inch 1, 3, right? Out 3 and out 1, which are the left side. We're gonna send those. We're gonna send the clean sound out of those, right? And over here at the end of our distorted chain, we're gonna add another one, and utilities output, and that will be the remaining outputs will be sent to that, right? And again, you can on stage, the way I did that, you can send to the front of house the XLRs, and they'll get left and right, clean and dirty. And then you can have two different speakers on stage, maybe FR, right? Full range flat response speakers, because you already have the amp sims here, but you could have the sounds coming out of different speakers rather than mixed, which is a different experience altogether. It feels really nice. In fact, I have that going on right now with my studio speakers, right? store the sounds coming out on one side. In my living room, I have two little practice amps, two PJB practice amps. And I love doing that there too. I like having a completely different tone coming out of each speaker. So not treating them really as a stereo pair, but rather as two separate rigs with different tones, right? So that's what we get now. Now we can achieve a balance here by just dealing with the speaker volume is enough. So now we have clean sound coming out of one and dirty sound coming out of the other. So now one way to bind them, right? Let's save that. Is let's go to bindings, and we can turn off one of these outputs with one switch, and then turn off the other one, right, with the other switch. So now. And I don't have this on the floor, so I'm not going to be using my foot. Unfortunately, right now it just doesn't work with the camera so much to have my face and the pedal be so far from each other. I'm, by the way, learning this new 360-degree camera thing so I can do these videos with a single camera rather than one on me and one on the pedal. And I think it's going to work out. But yeah, I need the... Plus, it's more comfortable for me to program. I should probably just put a MIDI foot switch on the floor, right, and bind those. We'll do that for next time. Anyway, let's get out of bindings now, and let's save that. So now I have both of them, right, and here I have just the clean, and here I have just the dirty. Both. So that's it. I think this is the idea. I mean, I could go into different songs, different records, different bands, different phases, different basses. I do have a jazz bass. I don't have a Lackland bass, but I think you get the idea. It's more about the attitude, more about the fingers, you know, the aggressive approach. Obviously not for everything, you know, there will be songs where he's playing, you know, with a more subdued attack. But anyway, if you're looking for that rage kind of sound, I think this is, you know, and taking some insight from recent interviews of him, of how he uses gear. He does have a distortion unit on his pedal board. I think he uses a EBS compressor, right? So, you know, there's nuances, there's things that are a little bit different. He doesn't tell anybody what his distortion box is. It's him tinkering with a soldering iron there, trying to make a wah-wah. He came up with a distortion. I don't know, I'd probably try to use maybe a fixed wah-wah block after a fuzz to try to replicate that. You know, I'd have to hear what song he's using it on and a recording of it to try to identify that particular sound. But anyway, this is the gist of it, and so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, tell me what you think. Help us build up the channel. It's a young channel, it needs your help, and feel the vibration. See you soon. I've been Bass Fox.